Amba plays a very important role in future, and she will come back into the story at a certain point of time. But for now, she's going to sorry. And then both of them, and this guy is also dead. I will mark people who are dead as with an asterisk. Okay, these people are dead. And Vichitravirya gets married to both of them, Ambika and Ambalika. And after a few days, Vichitravirya is in a very comfortable situation at this point of time. He knows that he's definitely going to be the king. There is nobody else, and kingdom is well protected because there is Bhishma. Bhishma is a great warrior, by the way. So there is no problem for him. He's a rich kid kind of a situation. He doesn't have to worry about anything. He has everything sorted. Everything is taken. So he's not a bad guy. Over a period of time, he's not very healthy person. He develops some kind of ailment, sicknesses, and he dies. By the time he dies, he doesn't have children. So once again, the throne is in a situation where there is no children. There is no next generation to come up and rule. So this guy also died. Now Satyavati goes and asks Bhishma to get married. I know you have an oath. I know you have taken an oath, but now the situation is so critical that you have to step up, you have to get married, and you have to have children. So that the Hastinapura, this entire dynasty is called Kuru dynasty. So every family has a family name, right? You have a family name, everybody has their last name. That depicts that, okay, this entire people belong to one family. Like that, this entire dynasty is called Kuru dynasty. Kuru Vamsam. Vamsam means dynasty. Okay? We will use some Telugu and Sanskrit words here in Ramayana, Mahabharata. Kuru Vamsam. So for the benefit of Kuru Vamsam, for the continuity of Kuru Vamsam, you have to get married. Then Bhishma says, no, that is never going to happen. I have taken the oath of never getting married, and I will no matter what, I'm not going to get married. I'm never going to claim my authority over the throne. That's it. And I said once, and that's it. It's not going to change. Then he says, you need to be creative and think about other ways of getting children to the dynasty. Vichitravirya is dead. Now Satyavati and Bhishma, they have this task of being creative, think about how else they could get the progeny or next generations to the Kuru Vamsa. Mothers are alive, right? This guy is dead, but these two women are alive. They can have children, right? So at this juncture, you need to look at things not from 2025 perspective, not from 21st century perspective. You need to think about the story has happened like 5,000 to 6,000 years back. Rules at that point of time were very different, and the population at that point in time was also very less. So the ultimate responsibility towards the society, one of the most important responsibilities of anybody at that point of time was to have children, so that there is future generation. The population was very less. Like, say for example, today the population of lot of European countries is drastically going down. The population of Japan is in decline for a very long time now. So right now at this point of time, Japan has the most number of elderly people. Lot of them hit like their lifestyle is very good. They eat healthy food. They exercise. They maintain a very good lifestyle. So their life expectancy is very high. Hitting 90 years and still staying healthy is a very normal thing in Japan, which is not the case in a lot of other parts of the world, right? By the time you reach 90, you are barely there. You are in a vegetative state. But Japan is not that kind of a country. However, a lot of youngsters decided that having children is a lot of work. We don't want to do it. They are annoying. They are expensive. They come with a huge price tag. So they decided over a period of time not to have so many children, have only 1 or 2 children, or not have children at all. There came a point they don't want to have children. And the society also changed, and they decided that marriage is a huge commitment. I don't want to get married. I'm happy. I'm earning for myself. I have no dependency on anybody. I am very independent. What's the point in getting married and spending my entire energy in the kitchen cleaning the house? Why should I even get married? If the society is like this, with so much of expectations from me, and if women start thinking like that, I'm just this has happened in a lot of countries. I'm just asking you to think hypothetically. If all the girls, all the women start thinking like, I'm earning, I'm capable of cooking, I'm capable of taking care of myself, why should I get married and invite so many troubles into my life? If they start thinking like that, they'll remain single, no question of next generation. But what does it do to the society? To an individual, it might do good or bad. That's one side of it. But collectively, as a society, over a period of time, there will not be a lot of people left. Now, Japan has reached a state wherein lot of people have reached 80s and 90s. There is no youth. There is no next generation. You would have retired by 90, right? They might be healthy, but they'll make a choice that after 65, I don't want to work, I just want to relax. But how will the society run if I stop working? If I like the entire society is 80 year old and now we all stop working, who does the jobs? Who does the work? How does the economy get generated? How does the work happen, right? Everything comes to a stall. There is nobody to clean your bathroom. You don't want to do it yourself. You have a lot of money, you're ready to give money, but there are no people to come and do it for you. Who will work at the banks? How does the society run? It comes to a stall. So at that point of time, 5,000, 6,000 years back, the population was less. So the most important thing for people is to create population, to have more kids, have more children. So that is the ultimate. And there were multiple different ways in which you can have legitimate kids. You can have kids. Okay. One is kids being born out of marriage, like mother and father, you have a family, you have kids. In this case, this guy has died. And Bhishma is saying, I'm not going to get married. It's a deadlock kind of a situation. Something like that will come into picture. Okay. So now the question between Bhishma and Satyavati is, what do we do next so that we can have children and Kuru Vandam continues to exist? It doesn't cease to exist, right? It has to continue. So Satyavati had another kid outside of Satyavati and Shantanu. So she would have, before she got married to Shantanu, she had a kid with a sage called Parasara. Okay. Both of them had a kid called, any guess? Parasara and Satyavati have a kid. No. You have heard about him, but I have never given you the story. Who wrote Mahabharata? Yeah, Vyasa. Yeah. Vyasa is the son of Satyavati. His original name is Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa. His name is also Krishna. In Dwapara Yuga, during the hero of the story has not entered the story yet. There is a grand entry to the hero, right? Krishna. Krishna has not entered our story yet. Probably not even born at that point of time. So there are three people with the same name Krishna in this entire Mahabharata at the same time. One of them is Vyasa. His Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa. Krishna actually means a color, a dusky skin tone. Anybody who's having that kind of dusky skin tone is named as Krishna. The other person is Krishna himself. And the third person is Draupadi. You will learn more about Draupadi in future. Her name is also Krishna. You will learn about her a lot. The entire story revolves around Draupadi. Okay. So Dvaipayana means he is born. Dvipamu means in Telugu, in Sanskrit it is called island. Dvaipayana means somebody who is born in an island. It's called Dvaipayana. So Krishna Dvaipayana is his name, but okay, I don't want to go there. But he is known as Vyasa. And he did a lot of work around Vedas. He divided Vedas into 4. He wrote all the Vedangas. He wrote Puranas and everything. That is why he's called as Veda Vyasa. So Veda Vyasa is his, and he's a great sage. He's a biggest I mean, I cannot rate them like biggest or not biggest or things like that, but he's a very, very, very known person. He has a lot of knowledge, he has a lot of powers. He and he plays a very major role in this entire epic of Mahabharata. So Satyavati goes and tells Bhishma that I have another child, Vyasa, born out of Parasara to me. I can request him to bless these girls, these two people, with children. She says that. That is another way of getting children. How meaning?
No, as in like, how is like when someone blesses them? How?
Why do you actually go and pray to the God? You get blessings. What does that actually mean? What does it actually mean? Good. Whatever you ask for comes to you. You believe that God has that kind of power, right? If whatever you are asking is for good, you cannot go and ask God that, okay, my neighbor has to die. That is not legitimate. No, I'm just making up. You cannot go and ask God that, okay, my make my friend lose her favorite toy, lose her favorite pen, lose her favorite pencil. If you go and ask that kind of wishes, God may not give you, God may not offer you. But if you are saying that I need to, I'll put in all my efforts, but please help me pass a test. Yeah, something like that. You have seen a toy, you have seen a dress that you like so much, you have asked your mom. She said, no, 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 I'm not going to buy it until you do something, until you pass this test, or until you do your homework on time, until you do. So you go and ask God to give you the strength and power to accomplish that. How do What is the guarantee that God is there sitting and blessing you? But you ask, right? That's your belief, that's your belief system. And most of the times, in most cases, God responds, God helps those who help themselves. So here he's almost equal to a god, he's almost at the stature of a god, Vyasa. So Satyavati goes and asks him, and it's a very genuine case where their dynasty is coming to an end, and it's very important. Their dynasty is very important to the society because they are the kings, they are the protectors of the society. They are not just greedy people, or they are not selfish people who think that I need to have future generation and it cannot end because I'm very greedy, because I'm very arrogant. They are not that kind of people. They are asking so that they can serve the society, they can take care of people in the society. A king plays a very important role in the society. He is the one who is responsible for having dharma in the society. Okay, so that is the reason Satyavati is asking, this dynasty should not end here, should not end with Vichitravirya. It needs to have future generations. So she goes and requests Vyasa, give children to Ambika and Ambalika. So he says, also, this is one aspect. Spirituality, belief system is one aspect of it. And the second aspect of it is everything is scientific at the same time. Okay. Um, Now you have the concept of test tube babies, right? How many of you know that a baby need not only grow in mom's tummy, it can also grow in a test tube. Yeah, they can also, yeah, yes.
No, I know.
You know that? Good. That's a possibility. You can look up on the internet. Test tube babies is a thing that they have experimented. There are people who are born, who is made outside of mom's tummy. They grow outside of mom's tummy, and they have a normal life, normal human life like you, me, and everybody. That's the advancement in science and technology. Today we have the technology. Back then, there was also science and technology, which is way advanced in certain aspects, but not as advanced as we are in certain other aspects. When it comes to growing the embryo, growing the babies outside of mom's tummy, all of those, they knew all of that. They nailed it. When it comes to things like automobiles, like moving from one area to the other, they did not make a lot of advancement. They were still using chariots, horses, and a lot of other kind of very rudimentary things to get from one place to the other. So you should understand that when Vedavyasa comes and gives babies, the thing that I'm going to narrate now, you may be awestruck. You may be like, whatever she's talking is outside of this world. Like nothing like this can happen. It sounds very unrealistic. It's meaningless. But have that open mindset to think that there was a civilization, there was a culture back 5,000, 6,000 years back, which was probably much advanced than us. Have that open mindset, then you'll appreciate how much progress people made, how much progress sages and rishis and people in that land of India made, right? Okay, so now Vyasa will give children to both Ambika and Ambalika. But Ambika and Ambalika should also be okay with this entire thing, right? They could say, who's Vyasa to give me kids? I don't want any kids and I don't want Vyasa to give. So Satyavati goes and explains the situation to both of them and convinces both of them. She convinces them. They are not 100% willing to do it. They are doing it because they don't have a choice. It is their responsibility also to give future generation to Kuru dynasty. When you get married, there are a lot of responsibilities that come to both the people who are entering into the marriage, right? There are responsibilities that both of them have. One of the most important things is having children. And taking care of them is mother's responsibility. Earning for them is dad's responsibility. So responsibilities are divided between these two people. Now, Vichitravirya died. So he can't do, I mean, he's gone. There's no Vichitravirya in picture. So these two women, their responsibility is also to make sure that Kuru dynasty doesn't end. So finally they give in, they say, okay, fine. Vedavyasa tells Satyavati, ask Ambika and Ambalika to do a certain penance in the format that I am telling them for 1 year, and then they'll be ready and prepared to have kids. But Satyavati is in a moment of hurry. No, that 1 year is too long. I cannot wait for that long. Because Bhishma is also growing older. Bhishma doesn't want to have kids. I want them to have babies immediately. Like, I want them to have kids immediately. She denies Vedavyasa's approach. She says no. Then Vedavyasa says, fine, that's fine. And then, so now having a baby it takes 9 months for a mom to deliver a baby, right? She's pregnant. It goes through so many stages wherein the baby is growing inside the tummy. And after 9 months, when the baby is fully grown and ready to face the world, the baby comes out. That's how the entire process is, right? But back then, they need not have to wait for so many days. Because of the powers of Vedavyasa, he had an ability to give the child immediately. He could give the child immediately. Yes, he was very powerful. He did so much of penance, so much of practice, and it is all backed by the science and technology. It's not like he's a magician and he's doing things, right? He's not doing anything out of thin air. He has gone through so much of penance, so much of meditation, all that in order to achieve this kind of abilities. Okay, so now, and Vedavyasa comes with a lot of aura around him, like positive aura. So all of a sudden, if a god, Vishnu or Shiva or somebody comes and stands in front of us, we are so minuscule in front of them that we cannot even, our energy, our power is not sufficient to even look at them. They are so energetic. You can't take that energy. Say, for example, there is a thunderbolt. Can you look at the thunderbolt eye to eye? Can you look into it like this? No. Can you look into the sun directly? Why? It is right there. Why don't you look at it? Why? You can talk.
UV rays damage your eyes.
It will damage your eyes, right? You're not powerful. You're not as powerful as Surya to look at Surya directly. Surya is sun. Likewise, these two ladies are not powerful enough to face Vedavyasa. Vedavyasa is much more energetic and powerful, and that is why he wanted both of them to go through that 1 year of rigorous penance so that they gain that energy to face him. But Satyavati denied. Satyavati said, I don't have that much time. You give the kids immediately. So when he goes and gives them a mantram that they can chant and have kids, Ambika closes her eyes because she could not take that level of power. she closes her eyes. She's scared and closes. And then there is a baby born out of it. Because she closed her eyes, the baby boy who was born blind. Okay? Okay, I'm writing here again. Dhritarashtra. His name is Dhritarashtra. Okay? He is blind. Then Ambalika's turn. Ambalika comes, and if you see something that you don't expect at all, you're not scared, but you did not expect at all, you saw something, you're kind of taken aback. Suddenly you see a snake here. What happens? You freeze, right? You'll be like, what happened? You have that kind of a pale look in your face. Looking at Vyasa and his aura, Vyasa basically looks like this. He has a huge beard. He has a coppery hair locks. His hair is coppery in color. His beard is also coppery in color. He had a brownish kind of eyes, which actually resemble Agni. They look like powerful fire in his eyes, and he's always he's always roaming. These saints and sages, they don't sit in one place forever. They keep roaming. They keep going from place to place. They eat whatever is available. They just do penance. So because of all these things, they don't look very clean and nice, clean and neat. They are rugged in nature. So looking at him, looking at his power and looking at him face to face, so close, she goes pale. So she has a son who is also pale in nature. He's like very pale to look at, as if he doesn't have blood. Somebody is anemic, they look very pale. So he looks like that. And that condition is called Panduroga. Roga means ailment. He has that condition of being pale, and that is called Pandurogam. Because he has that, he is called as Panduraju. Panduraju means the one with the very pale skin. But other than that, he doesn't have any problems. He doesn't have any other physical issues. Okay? What is his name? What does his name resemble? What does it, I'm not asking what does it mean. What does it resemble? He's very pale. That's what it means. What does it remind you? I know who doesn't know anything about Mahabharata, it may not remind anything. Yeah? Pandavas? Yes, Pandavas. He's the dad of Pandavas. That is what it resembles. Okay? So the entire story is about the cousins, the first cousins. This guy will have kids. This guy will have kids. Now they both fight for the throne. That is the whole story. That is the entire story, okay, that we are going to talk about. So Pandavas, and his kids are Kauravas, his kids are Pandavas, okay. Now, Satyavati is kind of upset. She has kids, she has 2 kids, but one of them is blind. So he cannot probably be a very powerful king because he has some physical disability. Panduraju is there, but there is only one. They need to have multiple kids. They need to have a very flourishing dynasty going ahead. So she then again requests one of them, Ambika or Ambalika, try one more time to have another baby. Yeah. Maybe. Maybe. I don't know. I read it, but I forgot. One of them, definitely. Doesn't really matter because that person decides to send her servant instead of her going herself. Because they both are like scared. This guy Vyasa, we can't take him anymore. He's so powerful. His aura is so strong that we cannot take his power anymore. So this lady, she cannot deny Satyavati because of the respect that she has for elders. She could not deny Satyavati. But again, at the same time, she couldn't bring herself. She couldn't be courageous enough to face Vyasa again. So she asks her servant. She gets her dressed exactly like her. And then she sends that servant to Vyasa. Vyasa knows what is happening. Vyasa is not a normal person not to understand this, right? But then it is the destiny. It has to happen like this. So it happens. Then, because with that servant, there is another baby born, and his name is Vidura. He is fit and fine, perfect. He is born with he's a very intellectual person. He's born with a lot of, I mean, he's not born with knowledge. He grows up to become a very knowledgeable person. He is the chief advisor for the kingdom of Hastinapura the entire time. Bhishma and Vidura, both of them are the guardians. They are the people who are who can be called as torchbearers. They are guiding. They're never allowing anything that is not in accordance with dharma to happen. Once again, so Vidura grows up to become that kind of a person. And again, Vidura, because he is not born to one of these two people, he doesn't have the authority to become the king. He never becomes the king, but he's always with the king and the family, and he makes sure that people are doing the right things. People are all the children who are going to be born in future, right? They are learning what dharma is. He is making sure that that is happening. Yeah. What's your question?
I heard that Vidura is like the, you know how he's the chief commissioner, but he's also like a good friend of the Pandavas.
Good friend of Pandavas, good friend of Dhritarashtra. More than anybody, he's a very good friend of Dhritarashtra. Pandava, they see everybody who's righteous and who wants to abide to dharma, like Pandavas, because Pandavas are closer to dharma. They want to uphold dharma and all that. We'll come to that part. The third one is Vidura. So there are three kids: Dhritarashtra, who's blind, Panduraju, and then Vidura.